Welcome back, my returning subscribers and new subscribers. We're going to be making a beef brisket. And to get started, this is around a 12-pound brisket. So we are going to be trimming a lot of the fat off of the back of it, as well as some on the side of it. Now, don't be afraid to trim fat off of brisket, but you want to leave a little bit also for moisture when you actually go to cook your brisket. So brisket has a lot of fat on the bottom of it, and it's visceral fat, or it's like the thick fat that will not render down whenever you cook it. So you definitely have to remove plenty of that fat, and you definitely want to have you a very sharp knife to do this with. And when you do this, you just trim it in sections. Total, we're going to end up removing around 2 pounds of fat from this brisket. And this is a longer process. You want to definitely take your time, because you want to make sure you have the correct amount of fat removed, as well as leaving some. Now, what I'm doing now is I'm going to the side of the brisket, and I'm removing the extremely thick fat that was not going to render down, because a brisket actually has two different parts to it. You have a part called the flat, and that's going to be the part that is up top that you see, and that's going to be flat and squared up. And then you have the part called the points, and that's going to be towards the back of your brisket. Now, you want to be careful whenever you do take the fat off the side of the brisket. You don't want to separate the muscle part of it, because you want that to cook correctly, and you want it to be juicy. So take off as much fat as you can, but do not separate the muscle. So now we will turn it back around, and I'm just constantly patting it, everything dry. And I did wash this thoroughly earlier, so definitely want to keep patting it dry. Now, what I'm going to do after I remove the fat is I will marinate it, and I will have everything in the description that I used. But I'm going to marinate it and put a dry rub on, and we're going to marinate this overnight. Whenever you go to remove your fat, you definitely want to pull up as you see me do it. Just cut it and pull up on the fat. And as you do that, the fat will come off for you a little easier. Now, if you want to leave a little bit more fat on your brisket, that's fine as well. But I like my brisket on the leaner side. And this technique I'm using, I always have an extremely juicy and tender brisket. So this definitely works if you want to do it this way. Now that I have my brisket trimmed the way I wanted, you take you some foil and put it underneath your brisket. And then from there, I'm going to put my rub on. And I'm also have a marinade I'm using. And everything that I'm using, this particular marinade has hickory in it also, so it'll have a good smoky taste to your brisket. And then as well as later, I will show you the particular wood that I use to actually smoke the brisket with. And we're going to actually use wood chunks. I will show you that a little later in this video. But right now we're just using a mixture that contains some black pepper, coarse salt, as well as garlic, onion powder, and a few other seasonings. Now you can use regular salt on a brisket, but you will get better coverage if you can use like a coarse salt or like a kosher salt. Kosher salt works really well because it's a coarse salt, and you'll get better coverage for your meat and a better penetration into your meat as well. But as I'm putting my rub on here, definitely make sure you pat every time you put a rub on here. Keep patting, especially meat with this size. This is going to end up being around 10 pounds. So now I will wrap everything tightly in the foil. And sometimes if your foil doesn't cover enough, just put several layers of foil on here. And you want to wrap it as tight as you can get it. That's going to help seal that flavor in the marinade in our brisket. And again, this is going to marinate overnight. So now that our brisket is marinated, I'm going to get my smoker ready. And this particular smoker I'm using is a pit barrel cooker. I really like their products. They have several videos online you can look at to see how it works. But if you want, drop me a comment and I'll be more than happy to show you exactly how the pit barrel cooker works. But as of now, I'm getting my charcoal down because you do light this particular smoker with charcoal. And then I'm using a chimney starter. I don't use lighter fluid, but I'll take a chimney starter and I put my charcoal in it. And I like to take some vegetable oil, or if I have like some leftover bacon grease, I'll take that and then I'll take a paper towel and soak it in the oil or the bacon grease and put it underneath your chimney starter. And then that'll help you get your charcoal started without using lighter fluid. So as we're waiting on that, I now have my brisket taken out of the refrigerator. I had it resting for several hours already because remember, you want it to be room temperature for it to cook more evenly. And so this particular one, we're going to hang it in the barrel. So I'm putting 2 hooks in it to secure it so it will stay on our rebar that goes across your drum smoker. And as you can see how good the seasonings set on the meat and everything stuck to the meat like we wanted it to. So while everything is cooking now, I'm going to show you how I make a quick mustard potato salad. And right now I have some potatoes. I'm just going to use 3 potatoes, russet potatoes that I've washed. And we're going to cut them into bite-sized cubes. Now, as we cut them, I'm going to go ahead and put them in a pot. And in this pot, I'm going to wash them again. And remember, you want to wash potatoes 2 to 3 times just to get all your dirt off of it. So again, you want to cut your potatoes into cubes around, I would say, half an inch to 1 inch in size, to just enough where you can fit it on a spoon or a fork and eat it. So now I'm going to fill it with water, and we're going to let it boil for around 15 minutes. And I like to salt my water as well, just to get more flavor into our potatoes. And we're going to keep an eye on our potatoes so we don't overboil them. So now, as you can see, our fire is going very nicely in our chimney starter. So I would just take the charcoal's already going, and I will pour them onto the charcoals down inside of our barrel cooker. And always use some gloves, something that's heat resistant, to protect yourself. And as you can see, our fire is going down inside of our barrel smoker. And now I'm going to use some pecan wood. And you can use, in this particular one, you can use the wood chips or you can use the wood chunks. I went with the wood chips just because wood chunks have been hard for me to find. So this is what I had. I put around 3 handfuls in here of the pecan wood because it's going to give me a nice smoky taste. And I like pecan wood better than like a hickory, because pecan wood is, you can taste the wood, but it's a more subtle taste instead of something that's overpowering, and it's not bitter at all. So now we're going to hang our brisket inside of our barrel smoker, and then we're going to check the temperature in another 2 hours or so. And this particular cooker cooks a brisket between 6 and 8 hours because it cooks with like convection heat instead of direct. So now we're back to our potatoes. We're going to check for tenderness. And on our potatoes, we do not want to overcook them, because if you do, then you're going to have a mashed potato. And this potato, you need some substance to it so it can stand up to when you stir it and you add your other ingredients to it. You want it to be not hard and not soft. It needs to be right in between. And how you can tell that is to pick it up and take your fork. And if it breaks apart fairly easy, then you know it's done the right way. Now I'm going to season it with paprika, salt, and black pepper. And we're just going to season it, and then we'll stir it up and just kind of toss our seasonings inside of our potatoes. Next, I'm going to add around a quarter of an onion that I cut up. This is just a white onion. And we'll stir it. And at this point, it's still pretty hot, but we'll let it cool down before we add our other ingredients. Now I have 2 hard-boiled eggs that I boiled, and we're just going to cut those up, and we'll add it to our potatoes as well. Again, this is a traditional mustard potato salad. There's different forms of potato salad you can make, but this is one that we make down here in the South. We'll add an egg and we'll stir that up. Next, I'm also going to add some dill relish to our mixture. You can add chopped pickle as well, but dill relish is just a little bit easier. If you can find it at the store, it's easier to use. And I'm going to add around 2.5 tablespoons of dill relish. Next, I'm going to add mayo This mayo has olive oil in it, so it's a little bit healthier for you. It has less fat in it. Again, you don't have to. That's optional. You can use full fat. And I added around 2 tablespoons. I didn't measure, but it's around 2 tablespoons. I'm also going to add mustard. And it's around 2 tablespoons as well. Possibly a little bit more, but you can do equal parts if you choose to. I usually do more mustard just because I want it to be a mustard-based salad. You'll get the mustard taste coming through more than you will the mayo. So you want to stir it thoroughly to get everything mixed up, and then you transfer it to another bowl. And then we'll put a top or lid on it, and then we'll refrigerate it because you want this refrigerated. And before I refrigerate it, I always kind of top it with more paprika, just dust it a little bit just for the way it makes it look better. And it gives it a slightly smoky taste. Next, I'm gonna check my temperature on my brisket. And you want a brisket around 160 to 165. And when it's around that temperature, then you wrap your brisket. So we see our temperature is close to 150. And at this point, the temperature had came up to around 160. So now we're gonna wrap our brisket. So we get more foil, and then as a wrapping juice, we're gonna use beef broth. You can use water, or some people use apple juice, different things. But I like to use beef broth because I like the flavor that it gives the meat. And again, when you do this, you want to wrap your brisket. You want to wrap it tightly to hold all your juices in. Now, briskets are so large, I had to use quite a bit of foil, so excuse my mess. It did make a slight mess, but I end up using several layers of foil to wrap it. Now that we have our brisket wrapped tightly, we're going to put it back on our smoker, and we'll put it on top this time. Instead of hanging it, we're going to put it on top of our grate. And we will check the temperature in another hour or so. Now you want brisket, when brisket is done, when it's between 195 and 200. And this particular smoker, they tell you to put your bars back on top because it controls the temperature that comes in and out. So now we're going to check our temperature. And when you check temperature on a brisket, you want to check in 3 or 4 different spots, because certain spots towards your flat, it's going to be a little thinner. And towards your point, it's going to be a little thicker. So you want to check in different spots to make sure you're getting your correct temperature. And as you can see that temperature is around close to 170. And that's going to be our thickest spot on our brisket. And of course, you can see on your flat, that was closer to 185. And then we have our middle that we checked that was around 181. So we'll come back later and we check it again. And that's going to be around 190. We check our middle again, and we'll check the bottom again. So we see that that was done. So at that point, you can go ahead and wrap it. Now, when you wrap the brisket, definitely let it sit. This brisket was wrapped in foil, and it sat for around 2 hours before I cut it. And as you can take a look how juicy that brisket is. And that's sitting for 2 hours wrapped in foil. And it was actually still had a lot of heat coming off of it. The foil will act as an insulator for it. So now I'm just going to slice it and show you how juicy that brisket turned out. As you can see, juices is running everywhere. So I like to slice my brisket, and then I also like to cut the end of my brisket off. And the end that you now see me cutting is what they call the burnt ends, and that's the ends that are closer to the fire. And you actually have more flavor on your burnt ends because that's what you have where everything caramelized from your seasoning. So it looks darker, but it tastes better because that's where all your seasoning is at. And remember, when you see a ring around your brisket, like you see the pink ring, the brisket is not undercooked. It is actually where you want it because that's called a smoke ring. And that's how you want your brisket to look, steak as well. Anything that you're going to put on a grill, especially a charcoal grill or a smoker, is going to have a smoke ring on it. And that's where all your flavor is at. So now I'm also going to cut some up and I'm going to chop it. And you can make chopped beef sandwiches out of that part of the brisket. My family likes a sliced brisket as well as chopped beef. Burnt ends, we like all of it. Brisket is also very good leftover the next day. You can make sandwiches out of it, or like a breakfast taco. Breakfast tacos are very good, made with brisket and scrambled egg as well as cheese and a tortilla. You can definitely try that. That's a different spin on a breakfast that you will enjoy. Make sure you have a really sharp knife as well, because brisket, certain parts can be a little bit tougher to get through. And it's not because it's not tender, it's just you have to have a sharp knife because it's so thick on certain parts of a brisket. And as you can see on the chopped brisket, you put a little fat in there and it chops up and it'll taste more moist for you. So that's the appearance that you going to see of your brisket. And now we're going to put everything on a plate and show you how everything's going to look. So we'll put some sliced brisket, some chopped brisket, and there's some burnt ends as well on here. We're also going to pair it with our potato salad, as well as some barbecue beans. But for now, I'll do the potato salad just because everything cannot fit on the plate. But as you can see how the nice color that came out on our potato salad with the paprika on top, that made it really nice. And the flavors are going to be very good on here. Like and subscribe and leave me a comment.